So who's the enemy? So the enemy is boring, right? So and when you run boring campaigns, you actually waste money. So that's kind of how it's created. So we say say goodbye to boring and say hello to all the things that we bring to the table. The Eskimi is a very, very early stage. Actually, we launched it as an SMS chat service, and it actually was launched in Lithuania. And we did it with a TV show where people can interact with each other via short messages on the TV, on live TV. A lot of other tech companies, they will build a DSP, but they would outsource the DMP, and then a lot of other stuff would be kind of, what do telecoms want? What do FMCGs want? What do retailers want?
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Pure Digital Passion Podcast with me, Kemibaro. My guest is somebody I've known, I think, for close to 14 years. I first met him in Lagos, Nigeria in 2012 when I used to work for InMobi. And he at the time was starting his company, Eskimi, which, believe it or not, was actually a mobile social network reaching millions of Nigerians at that point. The business then pivoted through the years and became a demand-side platform focusing on digital advertising, primarily targeting mobile devices. The business has grown exponentially since then and has a big footprint across Africa and other parts of the world. And I'm so delighted to welcome the founder and the CEO of Eskimi, Vytas. Thank you for joining us, Vytas.
Thanks, Moses. Nice to meet you again in so many years.
Yeah. So listen, it's been 12 years, I think, more or less, since we last met in person, which is a long time in internet time.
Yeah.
We met in Lagos, I think it was at Mobile Monday, Nigeria, I think one of the editions in 2012. You were running this business at the point, doing a mobile social network. And that was really the inception. But I'd like to go back to the beginnings. How did Eskimi start? What's your background? Where are you from? And then we can kind of build up from there and sort of get to where you are today and what amazing things you're doing at Eskimi, but more importantly, why you're here in Nairobi as well.
Yeah. So I think everybody sees Eskimi as the start in Africa, but I think that product was product number 37.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, but I think we founded the company 18 years ago.
Okay.
So it's 2006, and then since then we experimented a lot in different areas. And then we've been into mobile content, we've been into different telecom products, and then trying to connect all those products back then we created Eskimi Social. But it was not the first product.
Okay, so this is actually some iterations later.
Definitely.
And going back to maybe just the name, I think every one of us has always wondered, what does Eskimi actually mean? Could you tell us a little bit about the name Eskimi means?
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything because I think, or it was not intended actually, as the story goes, to launch this product. We were running a product in the Nordic states in Scandinavia, and we were planning to do a phone backup service back then in 2003 or 4. When it was really hard for you to move address books from one phone to another. It's early days. So I think we created this name, but then it didn't really work out. And then we had a social network or kind of a chat service that we wanted to launch, and we needed a name. So I think it kind of was, it was just
you just went
situational.
With it.
Yeah. So it's we went with it because the Eskimi is a very, very early stage. Actually, we launched it as an SMS chat service. And it actually was launched in Lithuania, and we did it with a TV show where people can interact with each other via short messages on the TV, on live TV.
Okay.
And then, initially we kind of grew to 200,000 members, and we thought, this was it. This is something that success looks. But we then saw that out of SMS, mobile will grow much faster. We launched it in Europe, but we saw quite early signs in Africa and Asia actually picking up because of the mobile internet penetration.
Fantastic. So moving forward, at some point you transitioned to the social network. If you can just maybe tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so it was a chat site, and then when we saw the early signs in Kenya, Nigeria, a couple of other markets, I think it started to kind of see, from 50 members per day, 100,000. A couple of thousand, I think, to the level of 30,000 new members joining per day. Then we thought, okay, we have something interesting here. We were still operating this from Lithuania, so I've been to Kenya before for my personal travels, so it was like, it's interesting. but yeah. So then we had to build out all the business operations and so on.
What is the appeal of Africa? How did Africa sort of seem to be the place to be or to start the business in the way that it's grown till today?
Yeah, so I think it goes to the market and how the market itself grew as a wave, because back then mobile was not a big thing in Europe, but mobile internet and mobile growth was very big in Southeast Asia and Africa. So, and then we had to choose, because I think we had similar growth patterns in Southeast Asia and Africa, but we had to choose where we develop the business. And being a very small team, we said, okay, it's the same time zone, same language, so that's why we chose Africa.
Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about that transition, because you moved from the social network, you then become a DSP, programmatic advertising. Tell us a little bit more about how that happened, what motivated it, and what was required to move it to that point.
Yeah, so social network is a very hard business to operate. So especially at the time where I think when we launched, there was no Facebook mobile, and 80% of our users here didn't have any other social networking account. We had some local players then, but I think when the global players started to come in and so on, we saw that competing in that global arena is really hard. That was one. The second one, and then we pivoted a couple of times. I think we launched the chat service. We moved to mobile apps when mobile apps started to be a thing and so on. But then we saw that it's very hard to still maintain competitiveness. That's one. And then the second one is that we always had an ambition to build a global business. So to move a social networking site from one market to another is very hard. You had those network effects. So basically, if you have a million users in one country, to start in another country is very, very hard or very kind of expensive, because then instead of driving viral organic growth, you have to invest a lot in advertising. So we saw that, and then having this ambition for growth, we decided that okay, we want to kind of experiment with other businesses, and we did, because if Eskimi was the product number 37 or 8, I think our DSP platform was probably like 41 or 42. So we have done some experiments in between. They didn't really work out on scale, but actually, the DSP at the time was born a bit of as an accident, because we were looking how to expand our Eskimi mobile inventory, and we started to connect to other networks to basically buy advertising. Like 99% of the users were organically, and they were coming virally, but then we started to experiment, how do we kind of accelerate growth? So we connected to a couple of those networks, and then out of a couple of African markets, advertisers started calling and said, look, I want to buy this slot where we see your ads. And we're like, where is this?
Really?
Where is this coming from, right?
Wow.
So then we realized basically that we were buying Eskimi ads to the places where it was the very early stages of the programmatic buying. And then we saw that demand that we can sell not only Eskimi inventory, but all the other websites. This is how the product came about. I think, it's funny to say, but when we created the first version of AdTech, we did not know that we were creating a DSP. So we were just experimenting and playing around with different products, and this kind of started working well. And it took off quite fast, because at the time there were a lot of entrants in the market. There was a lot of other websites. Internet started to be a thing. That was 2015 already. So when we came into the market in 12 and started working with brands, nobody knew what was internet advertising, digital, and so on. The reason when I went to this mobile money conference, like I was talking to banks, the ones that were launching the mobile money services, and I thought, okay, like the mobile internet products will be a very good transition for them to grow their business. But you have to invent the whole digital journey for them. So, but in 2015 and 16, the market already grew quite a lot, and brands were willing to buy across many websites. There was a lot of more mobile inventory. You probably remember this from the InMobi days as well, right?
Yes.
So I think I think we were at a very good time to kind of launch this product, and then it took off and then we scale it across Africa, and then of course to 40 markets as
40 markets as we speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. What any unique challenges that you faced in terms of actually building out the DSP, adding capabilities? I think one of the things I've always noticed about Eskimi is that your ads have very interactive elements. You know, you can scratch things, you can very colorful, very visually appealing. How did that come about? And also, what are the challenges like building out this stack that now runs the business?
Yeah, so I think the first challenge is that we were doing it as a bootstrap business. So we were lucky because Eskimi social was profitable, other businesses before were profitable. So the company we were kind of only doing investments from our own profits. So we didn't raise any capital. It was very hard to do that back then. I think then when investors woke up, about Africa, probably like 5-6 years after, it was a bit too late for them to enter in some of those early stages. So I think the challenge was, of course, to build a bootstrap business, investing in product at the same time investing in the commercial teams, launching new offices and so on. So that's what kind of was specific to us, I would say. And then in some cases, challenge operating in Africa, currencies and hiring talent at the time and so on. It was not easy, but I think we were lucky because now that we compete, or I think when we then competed started to launch in other markets in Middle East and Southeast Asia, in Europe, we built a very, very cost-efficient stack because, in the US, the ad tech scene evolved where basically you were paying for everything. And that ad tech tax, as they call it, was very high because you were paying for data, you were paying for ad verification, all those extra fees were stacking up. And here, when we're talking to advertisers, nobody understands, like, I would never pay for data, right? So we kind of evolved in the market building our own tech. So a lot of other tech companies, they will build a DSP, but they would outsource a DMP, and then a lot of other stuff would be kind of that the advertiser would have to pay extra. We went a different path because we had to build the whole stack so that the advertiser has to target audiences, has their own creative suite, and so on. So also working with publishers. So this, we kind of, it was a challenge, but then eventually it was a benefit for us because we had to build the full stack. And when we entered all the other markets where they were used to paying extra for services, I think it was kind of a benefit for us.
So there's something very interesting there. So you're telling me that you basically built your own end-to-end stack, meaning that you're not relying on third parties. Everything that is there, including the creative capabilities, are all within your platform.
Yeah, correct. Even data, right? I think data was a challenge. And that's why we started focusing on specific data sets related to the industry. So we launched our telco dashboard solution very early, where we kind of went to telecoms and we allowed them to not only see the market shares in real time and so on, but target the consumers that, from one telecom to another, target the churned consumers, targeted high and low data users and so on. So we had to build very simplified, solutions for the brands and, kind of help them go through the journey and not just, throw some sophisticated tech at them and expect that they will pick up, right? So we had to say, okay, what do telecoms want? What do FMCGs want? What do retailers want? So that's how we built like a telco dash solution, the creative suite, and the whole footfall tracking, for retailers. So we had to build industry-specific solutions, ourselves, and that benefited us as well when we were growing.
So there's this general conception right now where, unless I'm mistaken, when people talk programmatic or DSPs, that there seems to be almost a flooding of the market with different providers, local, international, claiming to own or do the same thing. And maybe my question to you would be, what is it that distinguishes Eskimi from all these other people? And I think maybe you can segue into how that is important to why you're here right now in Nairobi.
Yes, I think, again, we are looking at the same as a company DNA, kind of create stuff as we go, listening to the market. So, we were first to launch digital in a lot of markets here, basically starting to work with brands and inventing how they should work with the digital campaigns. Then we were the first to bring in programmatic and active solutions. we were the first to kind of experiment and try to offer the creative for the brand. So that's how we think. We don't look into global terms, into global trends so much. We were really listen to the clients, see where the market is going, what are the needs, and then trying to create for them. So I would say there were a lot of companies which followed, and the change that we're going through now is that the technology itself, like a DSP, is becoming more and more commoditized. So you cannot differentiate by just having a DSP. So there are many out there. There's a lot of tech that is being white labeled. Some of the providers that are running their businesses, they're using our tech by just kind of adding their look and feel. Where we saw and as well the market has changed, right? So when you're running the first digital campaigns, it was exciting, consumers loved it. Now we are in the era where a user would see 5,000-6,000 ads a day. They're using ad blockers. You open up a website, you see 10 ad units. The advertising has gone a bit boring, and especially in digital. So we see that the thing that we started on creatives is now matters even more, because if you look at how the consumers behave, what the brands need to do to stand out, creativity is more important than ever. On the other side, you have a lot of advancements in measurement. So digital has evolved, and then instead of just measuring impression or even viewability, you can now measure attention. So those two trends, when they align, we thought, okay, so this is where we need to invest. So that's why we're kind of relaunching ourselves from just a technology DSP to a creative and media tech platform, where creativity is at the center of all of it. And we are launching a lot of new measurement tools. Again, one of the first ones in the African markets, talking to brands, so that you don't just measure whether the ad was technically viewed, but whether it was actually viewed by the human, using attention metrics, using brand lift studies, then to measure impact afterwards, using neuroscience and AI to analyze the creative beforehand. So we build the whole journey of how brand should think, right? So we have the creation stage where they can use our builder, or our creative team can help them create. Then we have the validation stage where we use tools as Lumen, basically, and neurons to kind of analyze the ad before it runs. So our neuroscience tools helps us to see what will be the attention, what will be the engagement, and before launching the campaign. Then you run a campaign and measure everything during the campaign using all the innovative tools, and then of course you measure impact. So all of that process involves the current market technologies, AI and neuroscience combined into the measurement framework. So that's where we are kind of doubling down now, and it came through a lot of experimentation and then what the brands think and how the brands are being built. We are staying in that brand building and awareness and engagement phase, because we think fundamentally what was lost in digital is that that Mad Men era where the creativity really mattered went into the situation where you just create a boring ad and
it's been data science,
and then just run it multiple times and don't even update the creative. So it's very important for us to the creativity element and make sure that we go back to the roots of advertising, but then apply to the technologies of today in digital.
I don't know that the audience can really appreciate what you're saying here, because I've worked in digital marketing for over 20 years. And what you're saying to me, if I'm hearing you correctly, is what Eskimi has done is by putting creativity at the center, it moves away from what I've seen historically with many advertising technology businesses where all they do is give you a placement. They say, this is the MPU, this is the leaderboard, give us whatever creative you have and place it. And usually sometimes the creative is horrible, sometimes illegible. And if you're going to run it, it's unlikely anyone's going to click or even find it interesting. But by owning it end to end, including even preemptively checking the ad to see if it's fit for purpose, you're saying that you're essentially taking care of the entire life cycle and making sure actually in the process for your customers and your advertisers, you are protecting them from losing money by actually helping them realize what's actually going to work and not going to work.
Yeah.
And then also analyzing the final results and the outcomes of that campaign as well. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. I think, and then we have the luxury of analyzing 200,000 campaigns that ran, a lot of them with our enhanced creatives, and we see the differences, what then drives brand impact afterwards, right? So it's not only about creative, of course, it's also about the supply. And throughout the years, we also built our supply business, not only the demand business. So it's also about the people. So, you know, the 40 countries that we're mentioning is actually people on the ground talking to brands, as in here in Kenya as well. We had a local team. So, you know, it would not be possible for us to kind of translate that local flavor, understanding which publishers, which languages, you know, how do we speak to brands. If we would not have that. So that's extremely important. So I think that's kind of the element that build that success together.
So you're saying already with this new approach, you've seen some significant results impacting campaigns for your brands?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you know, the engagement, the ad units that we have, the engagement rates are like 60% higher.
Wow.
The attention rates, which is now measured by tools that are you know, accepted globally, you can get up to 100% higher attention rates if you combine the right placements with the right ad units and then invest in creative a bit more. Audiences, of course, matter. So kind of all of these together, I think, creates that brand impact.
The whole ecosystem has to work together.
Yeah. So it's not only creatives, but of course, creative is like, you know, like the thing that we're launching today, and I think you kind of alluded to this as well. You know, there's a lot of ad waste, but this ad waste comes from basically boring ads. So that's why we say, you know, when we're kind of framing our new positioning, we said, okay, so who's the enemy? So the enemy is boring, right? So and when you run boring campaigns, you actually waste money. So, you know, that's kind of how it's created. So we say, you know, say goodbye to boring and say hello to all the things that we bring to the table.
What can we expect from Eskimi over the next 2 to 5 years? What are you thinking going forward? Maybe in terms of your propositions, maybe in terms of your global footprint. What can we expect from Eskimi in the future?
Yes, I think now we are, I think we have like 45 events now to relaunch.
Wow, 45 events.
Positioning, yeah, wow. So globally. So I think we're doing that and very focused to bring this message to the brands, to all the markets that we're operating. I think that's where, you know, we'll go in depth, and the markets that we've launched now, we're kind of working more and more into them. We're not planning to expand to many more markets, but, you know, just go more in depth and have more people on the ground in the markets that are successful, including Africa, of course. So we have 4 regions. We have Francophone, we have West, Nigeria, Ghana, we have East, of course, and then we have the South African region. So we're definitely planning to kind of relaunch in those markets. So I think this is the second event. Next week we're doing it in South Africa. So I think this strategy will still require a lot of time and investment to roll out. But we see a lot of good feedback already from the brands. We, of course, all those elements that are in place are already, you know, working for a year or sometimes 2. So we have a lot of data to prove that this model is working, and that's what we're going to talk about to the brands.
Great. And maybe my last question to you, is there anything you'd like to share to the audience? You know, there are people who are, you know, CEOs, marketing officers, you know, people who may be entrepreneurs, who are aspiring entrepreneurs. Is there anything you'd like to leave our audience with, maybe with that, and maybe a little bit about the African perspective going forward for Eskimi?
Yeah, so I think for the marketers, the main message is to think about all the steps in the marketing funnel. I think that classic sometimes is forgotten when brands, maybe because of the economic pressures or some other reasons, really try to focus mostly on the bottom of the funnel. And now with, you know, digital as measurement, I think we kind of shot ourselves to the foot where it's like, hey, we can measure all those things, but, you know, that's why the brand's only willing to do that bottom funnel. But the reality is that if you focus too much on that bottom funnel, you lose the long-term appeal, you lose the brand equity, and then you have a lot of research right now already. The brands that actually moved too much lower funnel forgot about their branding and forgot about the classic marketing funnel. lost in long term. So I would say the message is definitely to not forget about that, because I think that's crucially important. And yeah, in general, I think we're really grateful for the acceptance that we have in the markets. And then personally, there's a big thanks for the advertisers, for all the partners that trust us in the Kenyan market, and then other African markets as well. So this was one of the first markets that we moved in. That's why the relaunch events are happening first here. Although we have bigger markets, in Europe, Middle East, Asia, and so on, but then we decided deliberately to start here to relaunch, because this is where we as a company was born.
Well, thank you so much, Vytas. It's been a pleasure. Great to catch up again, many years later, and I'm so delighted and grateful for this opportunity to talk to you, but also congratulations on the success. And I think emphasizing the point, it's not just about the science, it's also about the art and the branding, full funnel strategies, which you're now offering through your approach. And of course, I think, as you just said, don't be boring.
Yeah.
Make sure that your campaigns are effective, and that's what Eskimi is giving the market.
Perfect, Moses. So we'll meet you in the next 10 years, maybe.
Who knows? We'll see. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there you've heard it from Vytas, the founder and CEO of Eskimi, telling us don't be boring. More importantly, the evolution of his business to date, and the exciting launch they're going to have today of their new campaign and their new capabilities as a DSP in Kenya and the rest of Africa. Thank you for joining us.